Well. Good afternoon and welcome back to the West Ham Network. I am Anton, just coming to you for a chinwag. You know, we're several hours before the game kicks off. The announcement is there's going to be no Matchday Live today either. And excuse the hair, but there is going to be no Matchday Live. So I thought I'd bring on to you the show and we'll just have a chinwag about the game coming up. Obviously, we didn't do a Matchday morning or Matchday afternoon as well, but they're big game in the West Ham world today, isn't there? So if anyone's interested in jumping on, it was just a last-minute decision. I've put the link in the chat. You can more than welcome to click this link here. If you want to just come on and have a little chinwag, then you're more than welcome to come on and do that as well. But it's a big game in the West Ham world, isn't it? And how do you feel? Get your comments in. How do you feel about it? Are you nervous? Are you up for it? Do you think the players are going to be up for it? What decisions is David Moyes going to do? Is he going to put all these attacking options out on the field? Is he going to give our West Ham, new signings the chance, the opportunity to showcase what they are all about? I don't know. It's definitely it's going to be an insightful game and definitely going to give us a whirlwind of what's actually going to happen. Now, David Moyes has hinted about seeing a lot more of Scamacca. And I think we will see a lot more of Scamacca over the coming weeks. And particularly, I think it needs to start today. It's time for Scamacca to start. There is no ifs or buts about it. There's no need now to rely on Antonio. Sorry, I can't fix this camera. When we've got out-and-out striker that we've signed for the fee that we've signed him for, who starts regularly for Italy and looks like he's more than capable of stepping up. Sorry, I don't know what's going on with my camera. I do apologise. I cannot get this to stay still. This is ridiculous. Oh, I'll put it up here. There you go. Apologies about that. Is that it now? Yeah, that's it. Sorry. So, God. But I predicted when I did the show with Matt that what would really need to work for West Ham, what would make change, what changes would need to be made in order to see a total different West Ham out there. And I think that most fans are predicting doesn't mean that's what we're going to get, but upwards of 7 changes between all of the tactics, formation, and players. But I don't see David Moyes making that amount of changes. You can start from the goalkeeper. I hear so many people again calling for Areola to start. But I don't think he will. I think it will be Fabianski that leads the line from the back. I think it will definitely be Fabianski. I think a lot of people are calling for Areola to start because they've seen him play the games for France, and it gives him obviously a great opportunity as well. And I've seen Arsenal taking the lead thanks to Irish Tommy. And if you haven't already, go back and check out the Late Show with Tommy last night. I hope you really enjoyed it. It was great banter between him, Nick from Claret and Brews, and of course our very own Luke. So it was a great show. I think Tommy enjoyed it, and I think he was on for a good solid couple of hours as well. But when it comes to the goalkeeper, I think that I think eventually we will see the transition, but I just don't think it will be today as such. The next thing, so therefore, I wouldn't classify that as a change. That's the same position stays. I think that one of the biggest issues today is going to be our fullback position in terms of Vladimir Sofal. Great servant to the club, still got a future at the club, but he can't play in that current role because he is lacking so much. He's lacking so much bite and determination and physicality and pace, which is the key element, and it's been really highlighted this season. And it's just that this is where a big change could be made now. This is where if you put Dawson back into the team, then it's a change on paper, but it's not such a change to the team because we've been so reliant. Zuma and Dawson have got a great partnership. You're not putting in someone who's new and having to work out a partnership. Dawson and Zuma know exactly how to play alongside each other. And then you push Kira out to the right-hand side, who's more than capable of covering in that role. But you've got Ben Johnson, who's working his way back to fitness. Now, what's interesting is that the West Ham full squad has been announced for the game, and Ben Johnson looks like he could be in the squad for today's game as well. So I wonder if, he's been training. He has been training with the squad for about a week. And I wonder if that's enough to put him into the team. Now, if he is back and he was to start, that potentially would mean that Kira would maintain his position and you put Ben Johnson out the right-hand side. So the question I'll ask to you all is, if Ben Johnson has an outside chance of starting and does start and you put Kira in the centre of defence, would you be happy with that? So answer that. That's a key part. I think I would be happy with that. I would definitely accept that option. 100% definitely accept that. So your options there are bring Dawson in instead of Kira and push Kira out to the right, or bring Johnson in, push Johnson out to the right and keep Kira in the centre of defence position, or you could swap those two players. Either way, I see two changes there. That's how I see it. One's player and one is moving a position there. So that's two changes and we're only in three players. I think Zuma would maintain position. I think a lot of people would call for Emerson to start. I see Cressy starting in that role, and we'll find out obviously soon enough as well with who's going to be starting. In the midfield, again, I think people are calling for Bowen to be rested. I don't see it. David Moyes hints at the fact that he's seeing little trickles of good things coming from Jared Bowen and thinks there's the ability for him to get the chance to stick in the team. And really, the way I look at it is with Jared Bowen, it's his position to lose for the World Cup. And I think that I understand people calling for him to get rested, but I'm trying to think practically. When it comes to his position. The worrying thing I've got about Jared Bowen is if you do drop him or rest him, then I feel like at any point he can light up. And if he lights up, he could be unstoppable. We're not seeing the best of him yet. It does seem to be that he's further behind, definitely further behind in comparison to other players. But if we can just get that area clicking, then I think that would be absolutely vital for West Ham. So that would be out on the right-hand side. Max Corney has to come into the team on the left-hand side. So Max Corney would be my third change of the day. And we've got Tommy coming into the house. Tommy, how you doing, my man? You all right? I'm going to move this off the screen.
Yeah, good. Yeah, there I am. Okay.
Have you recovered from your late night last night?
Yeah, got a good night's sleep, had a hearty breakfast. So, yeah, good to go. So, I suppose like everybody, just anticipating 4:30, really. Just see if Moyes has been brave or if it's same old, same old.
Yeah, I think I'm probably more nervous about the team selection than I am about the game itself. I think that's the part that I'm counting down. Normally it's counting down to the game, but right now it's counting down to the team lineup because I've just said it there. Like I think the most ideal situation would be 7 changes with a mixture of players and positional changes. But we all know Moyes is definitely probably not going to do that. So what's the maximum he's going to do, Tommy? And with the news that Ben Johnson is training again, and with the news that Johnson is looking likely to be in the Matchday squad today, does that mean he's pushing for a start, Tommy? And if he does, would he get a chance?
No, I doubt if he's pushing for a start. I know he's been training for a week and a half, but he's been out for a while, and I don't think he would be considered match fit. You could probably get something out of him, but Moyes tends to be cautious, as we know. So I don't expect to see Johnson starting. I think Moyes will think it's a bit too soon for him. He'll probably want him to make a couple of substitute appearances or something, before he kind of puts him back in from the start of a game.
Well, I don't know, Tommy. The thing I'll add to that is, though, that if you go back to the Jared Bowen injury that he had last year, and we were coming up against Everton, and we knew that he was training, but we had no inclination at all. Nobody had an inclination that he was going to be put in the starting lineup, and he was. It's a kind of Moyes move. It kind of is. It's kind of out of the blue. I suppose the question I'll ask to you then, Tommy, is if Ben Johnson does get selected today, would you be okay with the fact that Ben Johnson would come into the team and Kira would maintain his role, as long as Vladimir Safal was rested.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't call it rested, because he's not tired. He's just been playing crap. Dropped is the word you're looking for, Anton.
I know, just trying to be respectful of the players, Tommy, but there you go.
No, yeah, I think either way, I'll be happy if it means that Sofel is on the bench, to be honest. If Moyes deems Johnson to be fit enough to start the game and thinks he can last, well, most of it at least, then I'll be absolutely fine with that. I just don't want to see Sofel at right back, frankly. I'd like to see Kehrer there, if not. I think we've seen already, for Germany that Kehrer can do a job. And Moyes has seen that he can do a job. Very good passer of a ball, which will be important, because, I mean, Sofel gave the ball away an insane amount of times against Everton. If I'd had hair, I would have pulled it all out, So it was driving me mad. And the same with Souček, but I guess that's another discussion. But yeah, I think either way, we need to get Sofel out of the team. And like you were saying, 7 changes would be fantastic. It would be brilliant to see a much more positive, more attacking side out. I don't expect to see that. I think Moyes is under a lot of pressure. He knows it, and he tends to be cagey at the best of times. So I think Moyes will be more likely be his usual kind of cagey self. I'd love to see. I think Scamacca will start, just again out of necessity. I think Antonio would normally start, but I think because he's been away, he's played in the US midweek, and then had to fly back on a chartered flight. So, he can't play. So I think Scamacca will start kind of by default.
Let me just quickly answer this one, Tommy, in the questions here. Gary's saying, sorry, going back to right back position. Why are we mad at Mad Vlad? I don't think he's been much worse than anyone else. See, the thing is, Gary, I don't like slagging off our players, but I think he hasn't been great this season. And I think he definitely needs to be, as Tommy says, dropped from the team, because we need a new outlet down there. That's the area of the part, especially in defence, that is probably our biggest weakness. I understand also people are saying that goalkeeper, if we start with Fabianski, the distribution in terms of difference between him and Areola, all that sort of stuff. But if you look at every single one of the angles, every single time that we get attacked and we get penetrated in our defence, it's coming from that right-hand side where Vladimir Safal is lacking that pace. It's his pace. Yeah. I'm not... I've seen the stats, obviously, when Vladimir Safal lost the ball so many times against Everton, but I think it's his pace that's really... I've never seen a player drop so much pace so quickly. Like, I can't fathom it. I don't know if maybe the last injury that he picked up really had a knock-on effect to him, and it could be something that's just tweaked his pace a little bit, but it's a kind of odd one.
And it's not, just for clarity, we're not picking on Safal. This isn't one player we're looking to be swapped out of the team here. In the team I put out, I had Areola in place of Fabianski. I had Kehrer on the right in place of Safal. I had Emerson starting instead of Cresswell. I have Downs in there instead of Souček. I have Corney in instead of Bowen. I've got Benrahma in there in place of Fornells. I've got Scamacca in place of Antonio. I mean, there's a raft of changes that I would make. This is not just about Sofel. This is about getting the players out who are not performing. Yeah. And in Antonio, who's just tired and jet-lagged and just can't start today. So, there's a raft of changes. It goes far beyond just Sofel. But Sofel, frankly, I'm sorry, has just been terrible. He's been terrible. Yeah. You can't keep playing him. Yeah. And it's not picking on a player to drop them for being terrible.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely, and lots of people are saying that they may even see. I mean, we literally don't know. I mean, I'm very hopeful. I'm hopeful, Tommy, that we're going to see something different. I don't want to be negative when I see the starting lineup. I don't want West Ham fans to be negative when we see the starting lineup. So I'm desperately hoping for a minimum. I think the minimum amount of changes I would accept today between positional players and actual positions and players, the minimum I'm looking for is 4. The minimum I'd accept is 4. I don't think I'd accept anything less than that. And the maximum that's needed is about 7, in my opinion. But then again, who are we to sit here and say that? But you just feel like when you watch the games, it's like, what are us and what are the pundits seeing that currently David Moyes is being persistent with his team? I understand his persistence with his team, but Let's move into the central of midfield. A lot of people calling out Declan Rice, not stepping up to the plate when needed to do that, especially being the West Ham captain. I mean, for me, I love him. He's given us the best performances he can possibly do. But you can definitely see the niggle in his, or what's the word I'm looking for? His naivety and his juvenile mindset in comparison to someone who has been there, done that, wore the t-shirt in terms of a captain, because he does seem to lose the rag a little bit too easy. And I wonder if that has a little effect in his game, Tommy.
Yeah, I think Declan is obviously very frustrated. He sets a high standard for himself and for the team. And he wants us to win games and play well, and we haven't been doing that. And there's no question Rice is very frustrated with the performances and the results. But I do agree with the sentiment about his captaincy. He is still a young player. He's still a young man. And he obviously needs to grow into the captaincy role. But yeah, I don't particularly like his body language when things are not going well. He comes across as, a bit sulky, a bit snarky, and whereas I'd rather he kind of act more like a captain and try to inspire the team. Look, if you need to dig a teammate out, dig him out. I've got no problem with that. I'm sure Mark Noble dug out teammates at times on the pitch and give him what for if he saw something he wasn't happy with. You can do that. But you also need to kind of inspire them and try to drive them on verbally and with your own play to bigger and better things. And I just don't think he's doing that at the moment, Rice. He's not looking like the best captaincy material. I have to say that. As much as I love Declan Rice as a player, whether he's going to be a suitable captain, I have my doubts, because he does get a bit sulky and petulant on the pitch, and it's not a good look. And I hope somebody's maybe said that to him, that, you've got to stop, sulking and throwing your hands up in the air and, acting kind of like a little bit like a spoiled kid sometimes, even when things don't go our way. He's got to be inspirational and drive this team on.
Yeah. And I think that's something that he'll. I have no doubts about it, that he is. There's so many different variables this season for West Ham. You've lost. I don't want to keep. I am going to bring it up. You've lost Mark Noble, but he is coming back in a more official capacity, above the playing staff. You've given a new captaincy over to a young, very well thought of player, who's about to head to a World Cup. And that transition alone is so big for a young. I'm trying to look around the Premier League, and people tell me, I don't know, what's the average age of the captain of the club. I understand why West Ham. I mean, if we had said to each other, last season, would Declan Rice be the West Ham captain? Probably 90% of the West Ham fans went, yeah, absolutely. He probably is the right man for the job. And I still think he is. I think he'll grow.
Yeah, I think he'll grow into that.
I
wouldn't strip him of the captaincy, but he's got to stop the sulky stuff.
Yeah,
it's not a good look.
Yeah, he definitely has that. His head gets easily turned. If you think back to the Frankfurt game, albeit he wasn't the captain, he was the team captain of the day, the game on the pitch captain. But what I noticed with him was, obviously, he lost the rag, and really, we as fans lose the rag, but you just don't want your captain needs to be leading from the front. And I think he will step into that role and get a lot better. I think there's an element of frustration because the team is underperforming, whereas people have also been saying that we've previously been overperforming. And I suppose it's just about knitting in and trying to find that middle ground where West Ham can really be reasonably consistent, So, Anton, don't get your hopes up from Artel. He says Downs and Rice in the midfield. I mean, listen, if Downs starts in the midfield alongside Rice, that suits me. It does. I'm calling for Paqueta to go in there, but if Downs starts in there, yeah, then that's fine. But again, I'm going to go and talk about Tommy Souček, and we've spoken about him a lot. But he needs time off the field. He needs to come away. And I think you said the comment last night, Tommy. You didn't. You said sometimes in management it's about protecting your players.
Yeah, sometimes it is, and I don't think he's doing Souček any favors either, because it's just kind of getting worse and worse for him. I mean, he's even I think last season there was a period where he wasn't playing particularly well for us, but he was still putting in really good performances for Czech Republic. But that's not even happening now. You know, his form has tanked at international level as well, and I just think he has to come out of the team and kind of refocus himself. And sometimes that's what a player needs. Sometimes the best thing, even for the player, not just for the team, is just to take that player out of the firing line for a little bit. You know, get them back into training, let them train for a while, let them kind of rediscover a bit of form. Maybe that way you can use him off the subs bench still, absolutely, and let him work his way back into a bit of form. Play him in Europe, you know, absolutely. You could play Souček in Europe, you know, in the Conference League. Let him gain a little bit of momentum in there. We saw how that worked for Lanzini last season. You know, I mean, Lanzini started, he was only playing in Europa League games in the group stage, and it allowed him to develop a match sharpness and fitness and a confidence because he was playing well. And then when he did come into the team in the Premier League games, you know, he had that, he was ready to go when he was confident. He knew he was playing well. We could do something like that with Souček and a couple of other players like Sofal as well, and just give them Conference League group stage games and let them just work their way back to something like their usual form, their better form. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think ultimately you have to do it for the team because Moyes has got to get results, and he can't keep playing the same players that are not performing for him. No matter how much he likes them or rates them or trusts them, you know, at some point, you know, self-preservation has to kick in, and he's got to get these players out the team. And now the team I put out, I went with a 4-3-3, and I did have the midfield three of Rice, Paqueta, and Downs. Now, even if Moyes does go with, say, his usual 4-2-3-1, I would still have Downs alongside Rice. I think it's highly unlikely, to me, in my mind at least, that Downs would come in and play worse than Souček.
Yeah, I kind of see that as well. Listen, if you are watching and you fancy just coming on, even if it's for a couple of minutes, and if you don't want to be on camera, you've got the option as well. You can just come in your in audio only. I've put the link in the chat, so click that link, follow the instructions, and it takes you through the instructions of how you come on with myself and Tommy, and just get your voice across. And if you're not keen to do it, or you would like to do it, but you've never done it before, listen, we're very friendly, or we try to be as friendly as we can. But yeah, Tommy, back onto the team. I mean, I get that 100%. I understand, you know, just for me, it's just the shaking up. It's the shaking up of the team. That's just you know, I feel like we've definitely got the players there. We've saw enough of even the new players now. I'm trying to think if there's any of the new players we've not saw any of apart from Aguerd. We've saw enough of every one of those players to know that there's something about them. You know, if we go through them, Scamacca, his runs, his spatial awareness of going up front, his forward thinking, he's thinking on his front feet. He's always progressively looking forward. He makes very good runs, and I see some people saying, "Is he going to be the future Haller?" Not for me, because I think that we have now got other players that will not just expect a player to stay in the box. Scamacca doesn't just stay in the box. He drops deep. He goes out wide. He does everything he needs to do. Scamacca simply just needs to run in the team. And for me, he has had a very unfortunate start to his West Ham career, because probably when he was going to get a run in the team, he came down with the virus, and that had a little bit of a shake up into his system. And now hopefully he's back to full fitness. Scamacca, I mean, you go for it, Tommy.
It was one of the. It was actually one of the things I touched on in the show last night. Was the options that Moyes does actually have, which he didn't feel he had last season. And it's not like the likes of kind of Cornet, Benrahma, Scamacca, you know, Downs are unknown kind of quantities. You know, he's seen them play in the Conference League. They've done very well in that when they've been asked to play, very well. He's seen what they can do off the bench, you know, at Chelsea, at Everton, at Villa. He's seen what these players can do. You know, when they're given an opportunity, that they bring something to the team. They're good players who can contribute and who look really good when they play. So he knows he's got those players there, like Cornet, Scamacca, Benrahma, Downs, who can do a job and come in. That he doesn't have to stick with players that are not on form, and there's no excuse for it, in my opinion. He knows those players are there. He knows what they bring. They've brought a lot, from what we've seen. I mean, these are all really good players that we're talking about. So he's got no excuse. If he sticks with the same team again today, roughly, that we saw at Everton, and we play that same kind of defensive, tepid, nervy way and lose again, there is absolutely no hiding place for Moyes now.
No. And I think that's the thing. I think a lot of people, it depends on how you interpret what we're saying here, but I think the biggest thing is that we've now put ourselves into this situation as a team, as a manager, as a coach, as a club. I don't think, I still am not absolutely, I am not personally Moyes out or anything like that. I'm extremely positive West Ham fan. I still think this team will click, and when it does click and when it finds the rhythm, then we'll be looking back at this moment of moaning and going, well, why the hell? We'll moan again because we'll go, why the hell did you not do it earlier? That's where I genuinely believe this team is, because I think that players like Max Cornet, whom has been, I've seen people say, oh, he rolls around the floor a little bit more, or he's had a few chances, he's not put the ball in the back of the net. But I tell you what, he's been heavily involved in every incident in West Ham progressively moving forward. He's won us 2 penalties. He's hit the bar. He's scored a goal that should never been disallowed. He's had several chances in that goal. He's finding those positions, and he is a connector. He's that kind of, I find him to be a missing piece of the jigsaw player, if that makes any sense. He's an all-rounder, isn't he? I'm trying not to big him up too much because we've still not saw absolutely everything of him, but we saw what he was capable of doing for a team that were struggling last year. 9 goals. 9 goals for a relegated Burnley side, That's
phenomenal. It really is. To score 9 goals in a relegated team, and not playing as a number 9 either. I mean, that's phenomenal. Cornet is an absolute live wire. He causes so many problems for opponents whenever we've seen him. He's got pace, he's got really good skill, and he does have an eye for goal. Like I say, he was unlucky hitting the post with the header at Chelsea. Probably should have done better with it. Probably should have put it away. Had one disallowed in that game, remember, as well. But brought a great save from Begovic when he came on in the Everton game as well late on. So he has a lot to him. He's an exciting player, and we have to see a lot more of Maxwell Cornet. He can contribute hugely, I think, to the team. And you wonder what's it going to take for Moyes to say, okay, here you go. Here's your start. Jared, I'm going to sit you down. It's just not happening for you at the moment. And, okay, Max, here's your chance. Go in and show us what you can do, from the start for 90 minutes. Or even for 75, you want to bring Jared on, for 15 minutes, whatever. That might be the little kick up the arse he needs. Jared could come on for 15 minutes and do brilliantly and show, and play much better than he has been, because he realizes that Cornet is going to take his place if he doesn't. So, you've got to show players that they have to play well if they want to start in this team. It's a healthy message for a player that if you're not performing, I've got a player on the bench who's really good, who will take your spot and might keep it. So it's a healthy thing. And I think Moyes has to send that message out today that, we've got to have players in the team who are going to perform for the team.
Well, Mandy is saying, hi, everyone. If Moyes only made one change, which was forced into with Scamacca for Antonio, would that be okay? I mean, no. I'm being honest with you, Mandy. I wouldn't be. I mean, I would be excited to see Scamacca. Absolutely excited to see Scamacca. But I would be like, I'd be a bit worried about the distribution that he would receive. I would be worried about the fullback position and the creativity through the middle of the park. So I genuinely would have, I would be, I don't know, 50% okay. I would want more changes, but we
and I think the problem I would have with that, Mandy, is that it doesn't show any change of intent from Moyes. He's making one change because essentially he has to.
Yeah.
So it's almost forced on him. Antonio just can't start today. He's just too tired. And what I want to see today is a change of intent from Moyes. Because one of the things that frustrates me the most about him is that he sets up against every team, no matter who we're playing, as if they're better than us. He plays defensively and cagey, safety first. I want to see a change of intent. I want to see David Moyes put out a team today that says, we think we're better than you, and that we're going to go out here and we're going to go and score goals and we're going to beat you. And I would love to see that attitude. I don't think we'll see it. I don't think it's in Moyes' nature to do that. I think today he'll still be cagey. He'll be delighted if it's a tepid first half and it's 0-0. He'll be thinking, yeah, it's going well so far. We're not losing at half time, which is how we set up at Everton. So that wouldn't be enough for me, Mandy. I want to see a change of intent, that he's going to stop playing scared against every bloody team we play against. There are certain games you could understand being a bit more cagey. Against like really top class opposition, you can understand, I want Fornells in there, on that left side, just for that extra bit of protection, extra work rate, the extra defensiveness, just to try and keep things tight, maybe against a really top quality opponent. But when you're setting up cagey, against teams who are struggling, teams like Villa and Everton, and if he does it today against Wolves, and it'll drive me crazy. And to be honest, I think at that point I just won't care if you get sacked, frankly, because if you're setting up scared and you're treating every team you play as if they're better than you, then I'm sorry, you're in the wrong job, because he's got a bloody good squad of players there, and there's a lot of attacking intent in that side. There are goals in this team. We should be pretty free scoring. We really should. But we struggle badly. 3 goals in 7 games is not good enough, not by a long shot. So what I want is a change of intent.
Yeah, absolutely. Artel says Rice needs coaching on emotional maturity and man management leadership. Suchek needs dropping. Agreed. Bring on as a sub 70 minutes, maybe. James Sawyer says, I hate this social media world. People will have you change managers every 3 games when things go wrong. People over 40 mostly feel different. Garino says, likewise, all well, or is it all doom and gloom of the West Ham front being away for a while?
Somewhere
Twitter,
in between.
Twitter, but I'm pretty sure it's in the battleground. Spot on about Downs, must be desperate to start. Artel's who's the front 3? We've kind of covered that. I mean, it's for me. I mean, for Antonio, the only way I would accept Antonio starting today, the only way, which is probably the way that everyone else feels, is if Scamacca starts alongside him. It's the only way I would accept Antonio. Tommy?
Yeah, I agree. Depending on the formation. Now, if he wants to go with 2 up, then yes, of course, it by default it would have to be Scamacca and Antonio. But I've never seen him really do that from the beginning of a game, to go 2 up top, and we're not going to see that today either. The other way you could do it, which I would be absolutely fine with, excuse me, is if he plays his usual 4-2-3-1 and plays Antonio on the right wing instead of Bowen, which is a really good position for Antonio. And I think if Antonio's going to start week in, week out, I think that's where he would need to be. Because as we've already alluded to, Bowen's form is not good. So if you were to drop Bowen and play Antonio out on the right, he could have a great game for us out on that right-hand side and carry a real threat and be an absolute pain in the neck to Wolves. And I think that would work. And I would be absolutely fine. I like Antonio. He does a lot of good things. He's just not a striker. And I just don't want to keep seeing him up there. We need Scamacca in there. So play Antonio on the right. Absolutely. No problem.
James says we can pick whatever players we want, but none of us have 1,000 Premier League games under our belt. Let's just support the West Ham, whoever plays. No, but I listened to.
Well, I mean, by that rationale, we'd never say anything.
No, I know. no, but I get the point that James is saying. I think I listened to the arch nemesis radio station TalkSport. I seen clip of Stuart Pearson. They were talking about David Moyes and what it was like under West Ham, and he said, "Listen, I'm telling you now." He said, "Behind the scenes, it's some of the best, man management coaching you'll ever see." He said that I don't doubt for a second that David Moyes is being quite, I can't remember the exact word he used, but coy maybe, or not as going for it as maybe fans want to be, but I think David Moyes understands by being 1,000 Premier League games that things could go dramatically wrong for clubs and you could face other side of football, which you don't want to be, and he is transitioning. He's brought these players in. It's going to take time, and fans need to understand that these things do take time. They absolutely do. So you may have a shitty season, but you can't just bite the bullet and go. And he, I mean, again, it's not all about what Stuart Pearce says, but he makes a couple of valid points, and I like that way of thinking. Sometimes I do, because I get that fans are saying, and I heard you guys talking last night about this crazy, or whether it's a crazy rumor or not, about the Pochettino approach or whatever it is, that that people would, 68% of the chat would have jumped at the gun to bring Pochettino in straight away. But I don't know. I feel like if I was to be consistent with what I said, Tommy, for me, Moyes has changed my opinion a lot on how I follow West Ham and team selection and this and that. And he's made me understand the word hindsight is a wonderful thing. We use it a lot, but in actual fact, I do believe that hindsight is a wonderful thing, because look what happened when Moyes left the first time. We brought Pellegrini in. Yes, wrong appointment, a lot of money invested. It didn't work out. We brought him back, and he came in and done what he needed to do to get West Ham to where we are. It's just whether or not people think he's the next manager to progresses. But for me today, the big thing is shaking it up, changing it. You said it, Tommy. We've got the squad, we've got the players, more than capable of doing a job. All we really want to see is some of these players now featuring. We've spent the money. They've done their, what's the word? The time on the sidelines. They've done their time of getting to know the Premier League, or getting to know football, or getting fitness back, or whatever. And now it's time to implement what you have been working on for the past.
Yeah, I mean,
weeks.
there's a very easy and simple way for David Moyes to energize the crowd today, and that's to make changes, put out an attacking side that looks like we're going for it today, and that we're getting after Wolves. And when the crowd see a team sheet like that, a starting 11 that's exciting and attacking, that's when they'll energize the crowd. That's when the crowd think, oh, here we go. You know, we're going to see something much more positive today. And that's when they'll really get behind the team. But if he puts out the same kind of team he put out against Everton, you're going to just get groans in the crowd before a ball's been kicked. Because we're thinking, oh, we're going to see exactly the same thing again. We're going to see a cagey defensive game where Moyes is just trying to kind of almost not lose, with a bunch of players in the team whose form is really poor. And you know, Moyes can help himself.
Yeah. This is a good question from Toby, and I'll answer it alongside you, Tommy. He says, how will you feel react if Moyes plays the same old team and tactics, but we win 4-0? However unlikely. You know, I made the point.
I'll be very happy. I'll be very happy, and I'll tell you why. Because I've already alluded to it when it came to Mendy's question. It's to me, it's more about the intent. It's about the intent, like how we set up. Like before the Everton game, I saw the lineup. I wasn't happy with it.
I know you were.
Players in there.
You were on with me.
Yeah, I was on with you. I was not happy, and it did not fill me with confidence. But I did say, look, we've seen this team and these players play very well before and get very good results, including against this Wolves team. So it's not beyond the bounds of possibility that Moyes could play a largely similar team to the one at Everton and get a good result, and the team could actually play really well.
Yeah.
It's just we haven't seen any evidence that that's likely. Now, if it happens, I'll be very happy. You want to see players. I'd love to see Souček in great form. I'd love to see Sofal have a great game. I'd love to see Bowen play a blinder. You know, I'd love to see all of these things, but the evidence so far this season is that they're just not on form and they're not putting in those performances. And you have to react to that and make the changes.
Yeah.
And as well as that is the change of attitude from Moyes. He needs to put them out to go out and be more expansive and get after Wolves, get on the front foot and not be safety first. So it can be done and it could happen. And I'll be very happy. But it's going to require players who are out of form to hit form all of a sudden today, all of them, probably 4 or 5 of them. And for the attitude from Moyes' approach to the game to be completely different. If I see that, then happy days. But I'm skeptical on both.
I think a comment I made was that if West Ham win today with the same team that we've been putting out week in and week out, I'll be absolutely buzzing. But I don't know if that's slightly papering over. You know, would that give us 3 points now? But what would that look like 4 games down the line? Whereas I feel like the squad that he's went and built, and this is where it's at. You know, the situation is some managers throw their players in at the deep end, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I used the example a couple of weeks ago of Alexander Isak, who signed for Newcastle. He hit the ground running, but he's dipped in form already. So maybe there was a quick, you know, there was a reason why Eddie Howe threw him into the team, and now, you know, the reason why maybe David Moyes doesn't do that. David Moyes has got a history of bringing these players in and taking their time and building up their ability. But for me, anyway, the point comes down to the fact that Scamacca starts for Italy, Paqueta starts for Brazil, Kira starts at right back for Germany. You know, a bit like what Matt was saying. I quite like the way that Matt was saying it. Was like, well, if they're playing for the biggest countries in the world, the clubs they signed for, we're starting week in and week out, scoring goals, playing well in these positions, then maybe we need to utilize them in their positions as well. But we'll see. I agree. There's no reason to play scared against the Toffees or Wolves. Kevin is saying, hi, Anton and Tommy. Hope you're both well. Can't get to the game today due to the rail strike. Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen there's loads of problems. I mean, Kevin, I'm struggling, mate. I'm really struggling. I spoke to some people yesterday about how I'm not making games just now. And it's really graining on me a bit, but I'll get over it. Hi, everyone. If Moyes doesn't change tactics, players, and we lose, Moyes days will be numbered from Pat Holland fan. I don't think he will yet. But
I think, I'll be honest, Anton, I think if he sets up the same way he did against Everton, and it's the same tepid performance, we don't score a goal, we get turned over 1 or 2-0, I think he's banging trouble. I really do.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, it's
and I'll tell you what, no, he's going to be banging trouble not only because it's another horrible performance where nothing seems to have changed, but I think a lot of fans who are teetering, shall we say, on the Moyes in or out question, I think a lot of those are going to switch over to the Moyes outside. I really do.
Arcel says he heard the same interview from Pierce about good coaching at its simplest is borne out by immediate execution and understanding. Sahil is saying, are we really helping Moyes? I think this is in relation to myself and Matt's choosing of Bowen and Fornals in our squad selection for today. You know, I initially never had Fornals in my team, but if we drop Paqueta in alongside Declan Rice, I understand why you would put Fornals in there as the 10 because... But I you know, for me, these players, as maybe a little bit like Tommy says, you need players to quickly switch into players on form rather than gradually. You know, there are players that are out of form that aren't anywhere near the form they were at last year, so they need to quite drastically change their approach. And I still do believe that the Bowens, the Fornals, all the players that we had last year, I think there's absolutely more than capable on their day. It's just about finding that click. No groans from me, dude. I'll cheer the boys on no matter what. Who is starting? That's from Gary. The score over in the North London derby is 1 each. Epic is saying, what I want to see today is a sign of things improving. If there's no changes, even if we win the game, Moyes needs to go. Sahil is saying, live the present, not the past. Artel says, if we see the same thing, fear-filled defensiveness. Again, my fear is some of the crowd may boo Moyes, unfortunately, and West Ham lose.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's understandable. I think if we go out with the same kind of attitude and team that we saw against Everton, the crowd's already going to be on edge. And then if we're playing really poorly, like we were against Everton, and we go 1-0 down, then of course the crowd's going to start getting on the backs of the players and probably Moyes as well. And he'll have brought that on himself. I'm sorry. I'm not going to sit here and have a pity party for Moyes. These are his decisions. He's the manager. And if he's incapable of changing things that are clearly wrong, he's making a rod for his own back. I'm sorry.
GP says, hi all, very strange seeing Anton's full hair and Tommy with none. At least on West Ham Fan TV, they're all bald. Morning to up. You're all talking to each other. It's really cool to see. That's not true. So that's so true and goes deeper. Even politics, PC issues, all stream these days. Fremer for PM. Right. Well, I suppose that brings us to predictions. If you are watching, put your predictions in for today's game. Go for it, and we'll go through them all as I ask Tommy his prediction as well. Right, go on then. We're looking for all your predictions in here. Everyone's saying I definitely is time for a new haircut. I know that. I know I need to get a haircut, but I'm growing it out. I've never done it before. I'm just trying it out, and the wife asked me to go get a haircut every single day, but I'm just ignoring her. So, Tommy, what's your score predictions today?
Okay, well, we've got two managers here who are both under a lot of pressure. Both have only won one game this season. Both whose teams have only scored 3 goals in 7 games, and who both desperately need a win. And I think both managers are going to be nervous about this game, and I think they're both going to set up in that way. I think they'll both set up first and foremost to not lose the game. I think both managers will be trying to make sure that with 15, 20 minutes to go, they're still in the game, that they're at least level and not, a couple of goals down. And so I think I'm expecting quite a tepid, cagey affair, if I'm honest. That's not going to be very inspiring to watch. And I think it'll be, again, just defence first, attack second. And I'm expecting a low-scoring game, not much entertainment. And I think I'm teetering between 0-0 and 1-1, to be completely honest. And I'll plump for 1-1. I think it'd be low scoring and cagey from two managers who are really feeling the pressure and whose jobs are on the line.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go 2-1 as well. Very cagey affair, but I think that if we, again, I feel like, Tommy, it's what West Ham turn up more than looking at the opposition. Are the West Ham full of energy, going to be chasing every single ball, making sure the passes are actually played to their teammates, and that will make a massive difference to West Ham. Gary J says 2-0 will win. GP says 3-1. Artel says 1 each. Sahil says 1-0. Mark Alexander says 3-0. Toby says 4-0. Guy J says 2-0. Fremer says 1 each. Sadly, a 0-0. West Ham need to win, and I'm going to the stadium. Well, we win 3-2. We'll take that now. But if this scoreline comes up, do you know what? Let's not even look at the 0-0. Let's not look at that. Let's just hope we get a point. It's vital we walk away with points today. That is the key element, isn't it, Tommy?
I think it's vital we come away with 3. Yeah. We come away from this with a point. I think we're just, it's not good enough for us, a point. We've got to start winning games. It's as simple as that. Now, look, I suppose as well, it will kind of depend on the nature of the point. Yeah. If we come out and we're attacking and we really go for it and we see a much more positive approach, and Moyes has rung the changes and brought in attacking players like Benrahma, Cornet, I think we know we'll see Scamacca today. And we see a much more positive attacking approach, much more energy in the team. If we see a lot of positivity in today's performance and it ends, 2-2, but we've played actually really well and we've really tried to get after them.
Yeah.
Then I think that kind of a point I could swallow, because I think if I see that, I think, okay, wins probably are coming now with that approach. We can see where we can win some games now going forward, and hopefully we'll start to move up the table. But if we see the kind of game I'm expecting with the 1-1 I predicted, or a 0-0, where it's all quite tepid and cagey and defensive, that point is going to do absolutely nothing for me, and it wouldn't change my view that Moyes is in big trouble, and that would not be a good enough result for me.
Cool. Excellent. Well, there you go. There's your Matchday Live. Remember, there is no Matchday Live during it. There's no commentary during the game today. However, we will be live straight after it for the match review. So please do join us for that as well. Please stay safe. Get behind the team. Fingers crossed we can get a result. Cheers, Tommy, for joining us. And fingers crossed we'll have 3 points and we'll have more positive things to talk about, mate.
Hopefully. Take care.
We will. Take it easy, everyone. Stay safe. And of course, Come on, you Irons.